It was early morning in the southern hills of Burkina Faso. The sun had just begun to warm the red earth, and a gentle breeze rustled through the mango trees outside the presidential residence. President Ibrahim Traoré stood on the veranda of his private quarters, cradling a porcelain cup of mint tea in both hands. His mind was calm, focused. Today was supposed to be simple, a visit to a rural youth center where hundreds of students, farmers, and village leaders waited to hear him speak. Inside, his speech lay neatly folded on the desk. The motorcade was ready. In the courtyard, below, security agents moved with precision, scanning every angle of the exit route. Drummers had already begun warming up in the village square. Traoré's team was proud of this visit. It was a symbol of his government's connection to the people. But as always, something was off. Karim, his chief bodyguard, approached with a sharp look. "Sir, there's a delay on Route A7. A construction crew broke a water line. The road's blocked near Kiloko." He hesitated. "We'll be 2 hours late if we follow the main route." President Traoré frowned. "Options?" That's when a tall man in a navy suit stepped forward. Idrissa. He was the president's logistical advisor. Sharp, confident, always prepared. "There's a shortcut through the old plantation road," he said quickly. "No towns, no traffic. We'll be there in 40 minutes. Karim shook his head immediately. "That path's too isolated. We haven't used it in years." "I personally reviewed it yesterday," Idrissa interrupted. "It's clear. Trust me." Traoré looked at both men, weighing their words. He glanced at his watch. The youth were waiting. He didn't like being late. A long pause followed. Then, with a quiet firmness in his voice, the president spoke. "Fine. We'll take the shortcut." The decision had been made. The convoy rolled out, 5 vehicles strong, engines humming in harmony. No one knew that this simple change in direction would lead to betrayal, bombs, and a strange animal that would stop everything and save a life. The shortcut was narrow, dusty, and lined with thick, dry grass on both sides. Unlike the main road, there were no market stalls, no village homes, not even the distant bark of a shepherd's dog. Just wind and dust. The convoy moved cautiously, 2 armored trucks at the front, President Traoré's SUV in the middle, and 2 more security vehicles trailing behind. Karim sat in the passenger seat, eyes scanning the surroundings. "Too quiet," he muttered. Even the birds had stopped singing. As they pushed deeper into the old plantation road, the air felt heavier. The trees hung low, branches like arms trying to touch the passing cars. Then, without warning, the lead truck slammed its brakes. "Obstacle ahead." A voice crackled over the radio. The convoy halted. Soldiers dismounted instantly, scanning their weapons. Traoré leaned forward from the back seat. "What is it?" One of the soldiers pointed. There, standing squarely in the middle of the dirt road, was a dog. It was scruffy, its fur matted with dust, its ribs faintly visible beneath its coat. One ear was torn, and its front paw had a small limp. But the strange part wasn't its appearance. It was its stillness. The dog just stood there, not barking, not moving, just watching. "Get it off the road," Karim ordered. A soldier walked forward, waving his arm. "Shoo! Get out of here!" The dog didn't flinch. Another guard fired a warning shot into the air. Still, the dog remained rooted to the ground, eyes locked directly on the president's vehicle. "This isn't normal," one of the drivers said nervously. Karim stepped out and walked to the front of the convoy, eyes narrowed. He picked up a small rock and tossed it near the dog. It didn't react, didn't bark, didn't run. President Traoré rolled down his window and leaned slightly out. "Why hasn't it moved?" "We don't know, sir," Karim replied. "Might be injured, or just stubborn." Idrissa walked up beside them, arms crossed. "It's a stray. Nothing to worry about. Drive around it." Karim hesitated. "There's barely room. We'd have to cut through the bush. Risky." "Time is ticking," Idrissa added, almost impatiently. But Traoré kept his eyes on the dog. Something in his chest felt tight. This wasn't fear. It was instinct. The same instinct that had guided him through ambushes, betrayals, and battles. "No," the president said softly. "No one moves." The convoy sat in silence, engines idling, radios quiet. Just a dog. And yet, something wasn't right. And President Ibrahim Traoré knew better than to ignore a sign that stood still in the middle of a silent road. The dog hadn't moved an inch in over 5 minutes. The sun rose higher, baking the dirt beneath their boots. Dust swirled around the still convoy like restless spirits. President Ibrahim Traoré continued staring through the open window, eyes fixed on the animal. His gut tightened further. "This is more than a delay," he said quietly. Karim looked at him. "Sir?" Traoré's tone hardened. "I want the ground beneath that dog checked. Now." A murmur ran through the security team. Idrissa laughed nervously. "Mr. President, it's just a street dog. We're already late. We can go around it. I gave an order, Traoré said sharply, eyes still locked on the road. Two soldiers from the lead truck exchanged glances and stepped forward. Slowly, carefully, they approached the dog, which continued to stand in place, unmoved. One soldier crouched beside it, brushing away the dust near its front paws. He froze. "Sir, there's something here," he called out, voice tense. Karim was at his side in an instant. More soldiers ran forward. The dust was swept aside, inch by inch, until a thin, almost invisible metallic wire appeared, stretched tightly, barely, raised above the soil, a tripwire. The soldier followed its path with trembling fingers. The wire led into the earth, where three flat, round shapes were buried. Landmines, military grade. Silence fell. Three of them, Karim whispered, directly under the dog's position. Gasps erupted. Radios crackled. Guns were raised. In all directions. The road had been booby-trapped. The president's convoy had been led into a death trap. Idrissa stepped back instinctively. That's not possible. We cleared this road yesterday. My team. Traoré stepped out of the SUV and walked toward the scene, flanked by guards. He looked down at the wire, the mines, and then, once again, at the dog, which still stood quietly, unshaken. It now looked up at him, its dark eyes steady and strangely aware. "We were supposed to die here," Ibrahim said, almost to himself. Karim clenched his jaw. "If you had gone around, if we had moved the dog, any vibration would have triggered them." Everyone turned toward Idrissa. "You said this road was safe," the president said coldly. I oversaw the clearance," Idrissa stammered. "My team swept it. There were no signs. Apparently someone added them after," Karim growled. He pointed at the soil. "Fresh tracks. See that print? That's less than 24 hours old." President Traoré's expression didn't change, but his eyes shifted, sharp, calculating. He scanned every face around him, his guards, his aides, his so-called loyal men. A deep silence grew, heavier than any weapon they carried. Someone here knew. Someone had sent him down this road with explosives buried just beneath the dust, and somehow, impossibly, a silent stray dog had stood its ground and refused to let them pass. The silence around the convoy grew thick, the kind that settles in just before a storm breaks. President Ibrahim Traoré stood motionless, his eyes never leaving Idrissa. "You said this road was cleared," he said again, voice lower now, colder. Idrissa shifted his weight. "Yes, sir, it was. I oversaw it myself. We had our men sweep it thoroughly. Then why are there fresh boot prints in the minefield?" The advisor's eyes darted toward the disturbed soil where a soldier now pointed to a distinct, clear print. Military boots, same brand issued to government escorts. The ground was still soft. The soil hadn't even fully settled. That could be from anyone, Idrissa said, his voice cracking slightly. "Maybe locals?" "There are no locals here," Karim snapped. "This road's been abandoned for years. You know that." Another officer stepped forward, holding a tablet. "Sir," he said, addressing the president, "we reviewed the GPS logs from our convoy's lead vehicle." He tapped a few times, then turned the screen toward Traoré. "Someone accessed the vehicle's GPS system 2 nights ago. A custom route was installed, the same route we took today." The president's jaw clenched. "Who had access to this vehicle?" he asked. The officer hesitated. "Only the transport coordinator and one senior advisor." All eyes turned. Back to Idrissa. He wiped sweat from his brow. "I was just trying to help. We were running late. I thought the shortcut." "You thought?" Traoré cut him off. "Or you knew something would happen?" "I didn't know about the mines." Idrissa's voice rose, panicked. "You have to believe me." "Then explain why the GPS logs show your ID code was used to unlock the tracking override system." The air went still. Karim's hand instinctively moved toward his sidearm. "I trusted you," Traoré said slowly. "For months, you stood beside me. You advised me. You said you believed in this movement." "I do, I swear." "They told me it wouldn't be fatal. Just a warning. Just enough to scare you. Keep you in line." Idrissa stopped, realizing too late what he'd said. Traoré's eyes narrowed. "Who's they?" Idrissa took a step back. I can't say. I don't know. You pushed for this road," Karim said through clenched teeth. "You pushed hard. Too hard." In that moment, the facade cracked completely. Idrissa's confident posture slumped. His shirt clung to his back with sweat. His hands trembled, and the president, once silent, took one step closer and whispered, "You didn't plan for the dog." Idrissa was pulled aside by 2 armed guards and restrained next to the last vehicle in the convoy. He didn't struggle. He didn't speak, but his face had lost all color, and sweat streamed from his temples like rain. President Traoré remained still, gazing at the wires buried under the dirt. Around him, The hum of rapid coordination filled the air, radios buzzing, drones launching overhead, soldiers marking the minefield. Then another vehicle arrived. Out of it stepped Commander Sekou, head of cyber intelligence. He was breathing hard, having raced to the site on a motorbike the moment Karim's urgent message came through. "Mr. President," Sekou said quietly, pulling Traoré to the side, "we've found something worse." Traoré didn't flinch. "Go on." "We swept all palace and convoy communications logs. Standard protocol during a breach." He held out a rugged tablet, tapping through files until he reached a folder titled Giraffe Track V7. Inside were rows of live tracking logs. Sekou opened a visual map. "This data was being transmitted in real time," he said. "The convoy's exact location, speed, route, all of it. Whoever had access could track you like a moving target." Traoré's eyes scanned the map. The data trail stopped precisely at the location where the dog stood. "Who sent this?" he asked. "We traced the uplink. The transmission was bouncing through satellites, but the original signal came from inside your own logistics team." Sekou's tone darkened. "A man named Lieutenant Damba. Quiet, loyal on the surface. 6 years of service. Trusted, too trusted." Karim's face hardened. "Where is he now?" "Already in custody," Sekou confirmed. "We caught him trying to destroy a secondary tracking device hidden beneath the seat of the lead vehicle." The president inhaled deeply, letting the anger settle in his chest like smoke. It wasn't just one traitor. There was a network, a system, a structure meant to pierce his trust and collapse his protection from the inside. "There's more," Sekou said. Damba confessed immediately. Said he was contacted by a foreign firm, a military contractor with Western ties. Promised him money, a new life, a foreign visa, the usual. "What was the firm's name?" Sekou hesitated, then handed over a printed document. One word stood out in bold, Langley Support Group. Traoré's jaw tightened. "Private military, linked to certain embassies," he murmured. "They don't wear flags, just suits." Karim added, "They tried to bury you using your own protocol, your own route, your own people." The president's voice dropped low, almost a whisper. "They used my people to try and kill me." He looked out at the dirt road again, at the mines still being disarmed, at Idrissa sitting in stunned silence, and at the mangy dog who had finally wandered a few steps to the side as if its work was done. Traoré turned to Sekou. "Arrest every person who had access to convoy routing. In the last week, no one leaves, no one calls anyone. I want names, I want connections, and above all," he paused, "I want the world to know we are not weak, even if it took a dog to remind us." The convoy had returned to the capital under heavy military escort. Mines were marked and disarmed, the ambush site was sealed off, and suspects were being questioned across departments. But amid the chaos, one question remained unanswered. Where had the dog gone? It had walked away just as calmly as it had appeared, limping slightly, tail low, disappearing into the bush like a ghost that had served its purpose. 3 days later, a young cattle herder named Dene arrived at a village outpost near the attack site. He had heard rumors of a convoy, an explosion, a dog that wouldn't move, and he had a story. "One of my dogs vanished the night before the attack," he told the officer at the post. "It's not trained, it's just always been different. Never barks, follows shadows." 2 days later, it came back with dried blood on its fur and something painted red across its ear. The information was relayed to the palace immediately. Under strict orders, the dog was located, sedated, and transported to the presidential compound under full guard. Not to be celebrated, not to be displayed, to be studied. Traoré watched from behind reinforced glass as a lab team carefully examined the animal. The results came back within hours, shocking and strange. There were traces of human blood on the dog's fur. Not animal blood, human. Dried, faint, but undeniable. And the pattern of blood suggested it had brushed against an injured person, or tried to defend itself. A scratch along its hind leg showed it had likely been hit by something sharp, possibly a blade. "Was it attacked?" Karim asked. "Did someone try to stop it from interfering?" Traoré didn't answer. He was staring at the dog, which now lay quietly on a padded floor, eyes half closed. It didn't look heroic. It didn't look trained. But it had stood in the middle of a road while death waited beneath its feet. Outside, the city buzzed with whispers. Children drew pictures. Poets began writing verses. The dog that guards Africa. The spirit of the streets. The four-legged sentinel. Traoré simply called it what it was. A sign we were meant to live. Just days after the attempted ambush, President Ibrahim Traoré received an official request for a diplomatic visit. A small delegation from a partner embassy wished to offer their condolences over recent events and reaffirm their commitment to peace and development. It was standard language, polished, polite. But Traoré had stopped believing in coincidences. The meeting was approved, but on his terms. The palace security team, led by Commander Sekou, screened every package, every person, every object, down to the buttons on their jackets. 4 foreign officials arrived in sleek black cars, smiling, friendly, respectful. They came bearing gifts, a box of luxury teas, books on regional history, and high-end electronics labeled, "For His Excellency's private study." What they didn't know was that the box had already been opened in a secure underground lab before the meeting even began. Inside, hidden beneath the foam cushioning of the tea tin, was a small black device, no larger than a car key, but it held a needle barely visible to the human eye. A pressure-based injector. No sound, no smell, no trace. If touched to the skin during a handshake or a hug, it would deliver a tiny drop of a rare neurotoxin, strong enough to stop a human heart, in under 60 seconds. When the foreign delegation entered the conference room, they found cold drinks waiting, comfortable chairs, smiles, but then the door behind them slammed shut. Within seconds, armed guards surrounded them. "Hands where we can see them!" Sekou barked. One of the diplomats reached for his pocket. A soldier tackled him to the ground. Instantly, the black injection device fell to the floor with a soft clink. All 4 men were detained on the spot. Their phones, watches, pens, all confiscated. One broke almost immediately under questioning. "We tried everything," the man mumbled. "Landmines, bribery, GPS hacks, even poison. But he always survives." "How does he always survive?" Sekou leaned in, eyes burning. "Because he doesn't fight alone." Later that night, President Traoré sat alone in his study, reviewing the incident report. He didn't speak for a long time. They had changed tactics, from chaos to subtlety, from explosives to diplomacy. But their goal hadn't changed. Kill the idea by killing the man. And once again, they had failed. The following evening, just as the sun dipped below the horizon and cast a golden hue across Ouagadougou, a national broadcast was announced without prior notice. No reporters were invited. No schedule was posted. Yet, within minutes, millions across Burkina Faso, and beyond, had tuned in. The screen lit up with the national flag behind a dark oak desk. And then, President Ibrahim Traoré appeared, calm, composed, firm. He didn't begin with greetings. "This week I was nearly killed," he said. "Not by war, not by rebels, but by people in suits, people who shake our hands while stabbing at our future." He leaned forward, his voice steady. "They placed explosives on our soil, sent traitors into our ranks, tried to poison me in the name of peace. But they failed." A pause. The nation held its breath. Some will call it luck, that a dog happened to stand where death waited, that a device was found before it could end me. But I don't believe in coincidence. He looked straight into the camera. "This wasn't just luck, it was a message, and I heard it." Traoré reached into a folder beside him and held up several photos. The landmine, the GPS logs, the poison device. These attacks were coordinated by foreign agents using our own people. As of tonight, all private military contractors, foreign, security advisors, and embedded intelligence agents must leave our soil within 7 days. Any who remain will be treated as hostile threats. Gasps echoed across living rooms, offices, and village courtyards. Africa is not a chessboard. We are not pawns. We are not waiting for permission to stand. He stood slowly. From now on, every inch of our future will be guarded, not just by soldiers, but by truth, by unity, and by those who refuse to kneel. The screen faded to black. Across Burkina Faso, silence turned to roaring applause. Horns honked, drums echoed. Messages poured in from Mali, Guinea, and Niger. The continent was watching, and now it was awake. Within days of the president's broadcast, Burkina Faso transformed. What began as a narrow escape on a dusty road had become a movement, a story, a symbol. In the heart of Ouagadougou, young artists gathered to paint a massive mural on a crumbling wall. A stray dog, eyes calm and proud, standing tall in front of a convoy, as landmines crackled beneath the surface. The mural was signed not with names, but with 3 words. It stood still. Across the country, children reenacted the scene in school plays. A dog made of cardboard stood before painted trucks, while classmates recited lines like, "The people ran, the soldiers froze, but the dog stood." Poets took to radios and markets, weaving verses about a guardian with no rank, no title, and no orders. Just instinct. It was not trained, but it knew. It did not speak, but it warned. It had no master, but it served the people. In classrooms, Teachers began using the event to explain more than just politics. They taught about trust, loyalty, betrayal, and how even the smallest voice or presence can stop giants in their tracks. Meanwhile, within the walls of the presidential palace, a new operation had quietly launched, Operation Mirror. The name was deliberate. It meant reflection, not just of systems, but of souls. Every government official, from cabinet ministers to night shift guards, was rotated, screened, and reevaluated. All digital devices underwent forensic analysis. New rules were implemented. No one could hold sensitive posts for more than 6 months without review. Every friend of the state, whether NGO, consultant, or contractor, was to be investigated. This is not a purge, Traoré told his closest advisors. This is purification. We cannot fight external enemies while rotting from within. Reports of uncovered bribes, secret messages, and undeclared accounts began surfacing. Some arrests were quiet, others were public, but all were swift and, yet amidst all this chaos, the dog, the silent hero, remained unnamed, unfed by fame. Some claimed it had vanished again. Others said it was simply resting. Either way, it had become something far more powerful than a pet. It had become the people's protector, and a reminder that when leaders forget their duty, the truth will stand, even if on 4 legs. The sun was setting over Ouagadougou once more. A warm, golden light bathed the presidential gardens in quiet stillness. The chaos of the past weeks had faded into whispers, replaced by rebuilding, reform, and reflection. President Ibrahim Traoré stood alone beside a newly unveiled statue in a quiet corner of the palace grounds. Forged from recycled army scrap metal by local welders, the figure was simple, a dog, poised in a firm stance, head slightly tilted upward, just as it had stood that day. Beneath it, a plaque read, "It stood still and saved a nation." Behind him, trusted aides approached quietly. Commander Sekou Karim and 2 spiritual leaders from Burkina's Interfaith Council. One of the imams stepped forward. "Sir," he said gently, "many are asking if the dog was a sign, a spirit. Some believe it was more than just an animal." Traoré didn't answer right away. He studied the statue for a long moment, then finally spoke. "It was just a dog, or maybe it was something more." He turned toward them. "But maybe the question isn't what the dog was. Maybe the question is, what did it reveal about us?" They nodded. No more needed to be said. As night fell and the stars emerged, the capital behind them buzzed with new energy. A nation awake, alert, and proud. Foreign eyes still watched. Plots still brewed in boardrooms far away. But Burkina Faso had changed. And now, Africa had seen it, heard it, felt it. It wasn't about a convoy or a dog. It was about something greater. A land that refuses to kneel. A people who now remember. And a continent that still stands.